Passionate about what he's doing. I can't wait to hear what he's got to say. David, would you come up?
Thank you. Les was talking about Mr. Boehner a minute ago, crying. I don't cry, but I do get emotional. Almost every speech I make. And I can't help it because I love this country. I love the state of Indiana. I love my family, my friends, my employees, my company, and everything we stand for in this great country. So please bear with me as I go through my story today. And at times, I just have to stop. I can't help it, it's who I am. Again, thank you, fellow Americans, Hoosiers, and Patriots. I'm going to tell you the story today of what happened to my company, my employees. I'm going to weave it into what's going on in this country today because I have unique insight to what is happening. I've seen it firsthand. I know what they're doing. And every American across this country needs to know. I wrote this book, The Devil at My Doorstep, not because I wanted to be an author, not because I wanted to make money, not because I wanted to make speeches. I wrote it because I was appalled at what these people do and what they want to do to this great country. The reason I have such great insight into this is because the very administration that we have running this country is infiltrated by the people I fought. Mr. Andy Stern and some of the other big union bosses. And before I go on, let me please tell you, I'm not anti-union. Never have been, never will be. I don't consider the rank and file the problem. The problem is the big labor bosses and the elitists that want to control this country. And I'm not exaggerating anything I'm going to tell you today. In fact, I'm going to tell you a short story before I get started. Because I'm going to tell you a lot of stories today. That's how I like to speak. But part of the program, what they call a corporate campaign that they run against companies to financially ruin them and psychologically tear them down, is called a corporate campaign, death by 1,000 cuts. Overwhelm the system. Does that sound familiar? Is that what's happening to our country today?
Yes, it is.
I'm going to tell you how it works. One of the groups that they had attack my company was a clergy group, and I'm going to tell you the story in a little bit about that. One of the clergymen happened to read my book last fall, and he called me up. He says, "Mr. Bego, can we have lunch?" And we did. The first thing he said at the lunch was, "I apologize." He says, "I was a part of all this. I supported the SEIU. I saw everything that was plotted against you behind the scenes. Every word that you wrote is true." He says, "I was wrong. I will support you in the future." and he has. I want you to know this book is true. The way I run my business is you do it the right way. I think it's fair that you know a little bit about me before we go into this. I was born in Indianapolis, actually Beech Grove. Lived there for about 10 years. My dad was transferred to Fort Wayne. I grew up there. Played high school basketball and baseball. Went to Wabash College on a college basketball scholarship. Lasted 2 years because I didn't like, my first coach left and the second one I didn't like. I went to Tri-State University to finish up. Got a degree in biology. Went on to Ball State University and a master's degree in microbiology. I was going to be a doctor. I took the MCAT, did all the interviews, and I was put on the waiting list for Indiana University Medical School. Probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And by the way, the reason I didn't get in on the first try, I had too much fun my first semester at Wabash. You should know that, doctor.
I would say quotas.
I subsequently took a job with Central Soya Company out of Fort Wayne, big agribusiness company. I started in the research department running the experimental feed mill and managing union employees. I've been managing employees since I was 23 years old. That was in 1976. I really enjoyed the management part and became good enough at it. The Central Soya started moving me around the country to fix plants that weren't producing either from a quality or productivity or profitability standpoint. And this is the key thing about why I'm telling you this. In each instance, they were union facilities, teamsters, grain millers. And in each instance, we didn't go in and change the process. We didn't put in new machinery. What we did was we took care of the people. Every time I went into a plant, the problem was the managers. They didn't spend time with the people. They didn't make sure the people had clean areas for their breaks and their locker rooms. It was all about people. And we would turn these plants around once I got the supervisors and other managers invested within about 16 to 18 months. I did this for 7 years. I ended up in Indianapolis. I was running the big Central Soya complex in downtown Indianapolis, grain merchandising, soybean processing, edible oil, and feed mill. I was there 2 years, and they called me to Fort Wayne at the corporate office and said, "We want you to go to Kansas City. We built this big new pet food facility, and it's not working." I've just told you the story, how I'm a Hoosier. And I'm sitting in the offices in Fort Wayne. And by the way, Central Soya was run by Disney at that point. Most people don't know that. You know, they're supposed to have this big, great management program, how to treat people right. And I'm sitting in there, and they're telling me, you know, we want you to do this, we're going to pay you more and all that. And all I'm thinking about is, I want to be here. And by the way, don't take this as a sign of a weak person. I said, I don't want to move. I want to stay in Indianapolis or at least in Fort Wayne. I want to be a Hoosier. And they looked at me and they said, "Mr. Bego, you're going to do this for the next 10 years or so." And I got up and I said, I resign. And I walked out after 8.5 years with the company, a good job. And I'm driving home and I'm thinking, I've got a wife, 3 kids, a mortgage, and a dog. How stupid are you? And by the way, all my sojourns with Central Soya, I was in Portland, Michigan, and I was out in Abilene, Kansas, and Colorado, places like that, and a lot of smaller communities like Madison, agriculture, and I loved it, so I feel at home today. But anyway, I get back to Indianapolis, and the next day Cargill calls me. You probably all heard of Cargill. And I did the same thing for them for the next 6 months on a consulting basis. They offered me 3 jobs all out of state. Florida, Alabama, and Arkansas. I turned them all down. My wife's getting antsy. And I applied for a job with a commercial cleaning company, janitorial. And I interviewed with the guy, and he offered me the job, and I'm sitting there thinking, this guy is the antithesis of what I cannot stand from a manager. And I turned that job down too. Now my wife's getting pretty antsy at this point, I have to tell you. In fact, her words are, when are you going to get a real job? So this guy happens to call me back, and a couple weeks later, and I take the job. I worked for him for 3.5 years, and he turned out to be exactly what I thought he would be. After 3.5 years, he had 6 general managers. I was the longest tenured general manager. Almost everybody else didn't make it more than a year. Now, what's that tell you about his management style? I'm over at his office one day, and I'm actually in a side office, and I look at this letter laying on the desk, and it's about me, and it's explaining how I'm such a bad manager and a bad business person. I pick it up, I walk into his office, he's on the phone, and I lay it down in front of him. He hangs up the phone, he says, "You weren't supposed to see that." I said, "Obviously." I resigned again, and I'm driving home, and this was from Mansfield, Ohio, which is about a 3.5-hour trip to Indianapolis. And I'm thinking about Fort Wayne and Central Soya, and I'm going, a wife, 3 kids, a dog, a mortgage, I'm in trouble. And I get home, and I tell my wife. And she says, "What are you going to do?" I said, "We will survive. We're not going to take unemployment. We're not going to take any government handouts. We are going to start our own company." This was May of 1989. She went back to work as a legal secretary. I started EMS. My first account was my insurance agent. I would clean his office at night, and I'd spend all day selling. By the end of the first year, we were doing close to $1 million in business. And my intent was, we were going to do things the right way. We were going to treat people right. We were going to be ethical. We were going to run our business with character. And we were going to take care of our customers. And we were going to survive. And we began to grow. And by the mid-1990s, we were a pretty good-sized company.